hearing-impaired man of Ethiopian descent is suing a Virginia sheriff over a violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act in a case of police mistreatment that has garnered international attention. Mr. Abraham Zemera Gegehu was jailed by the Arlington County Sheriff's Department for 6 weeks after being arrested on suspicion of stealing an iPad. He is a U.S. citizen, but having been raised in Ethiopia, he uses Ethiopian Sign Language and American Sign Language, but does not have experience writing in English. Homeless at the time of his arrest, Mr. Zemera Gegehu had a bewildering and frightening experience, with no understanding of why he was being arrested and held for so long. The iPad in question was soon retrieved by its owner, and yet the hearing-impaired man remained in custody. Mr. Zemera Gegehu took a plea deal for a misdemeanor charge to obtain his release, even though he did not steal anything. My guest is Caroline Jackson. She's an attorney with the National Association of the Deaf who is representing Abraham Zemera Gegehu. Welcome to Uprising, Caroline.
Thank you so much.
Well, when it was determined that your client was hearing impaired, what sort of attempts did the Arlington County Sheriff make to communicate with him and let him know why he was being arrested and what his rights were?
They tried to write to him and explain that information to him. However, he doesn't read, and he tried to explain to him that he can't read and that he needed an interpreter. They never provided an interpreter, and because there wasn't one, he really doesn't know what else happened. He didn't understand anything that was going on.
Well, when they determined that he couldn't write or understand written English, shouldn't they have tried to find an ASL interpreter, an American Sign Language interpreter? I understand instead they used a TTY machine, which is simply a device that lets people who are hearing impaired or hard of hearing to communicate with each other in written text. But again, this requires you know written English.
Right. So they should have provided an American Sign Language interpreter, and he actually asked for one, making his request and his need for that even clearer. For the TTY device, actually, that is something that's used as a substitute for a telephone. So they didn't try to use that to communicate with him, but they did try and offer it to him to use to place outbound telephone calls. But you're exactly right about the English piece. He needed to know English in order to use that to place and receive telephone calls, and he simply couldn't. And what's more, the overwhelming majority of deaf and hard of hearing individuals now don't use TTYs anymore. They use a video phone, which works much like Skype does now. If we were signing, we could see each other and we could communicate very clearly. And that's something that most deaf and hard of hearing people do use. But it's not something that the jail offered, and it was something that Mr. Zemera Gegehu needed.